They were not prisoners. They were the destructive legacy of Nazi Germany. Farm Hall wasn't a detention center. It was a stage where Britain unlocked the darkness through intellect. 10 scientists who once served Hitler now lived in English comfort. No chains, no cells, just microphones hidden in the walls. Because they weren't simple prisoners. They were living witnesses of a weapon program once poised to shift history. And they had no idea every whispered word was being recorded as evidence. These men weren't soldiers. They were physicists, engineers, math geniuses, people who should have enlightened humanity. Instead, they became tools of war. Heisenberg, once a quantum icon, was now entangled in a deadly project. The Uranium Club wasn't a scientific symposium. It was the intellectual wing of the Nazi war machine, trying to forge a weapon that could burn London with a single push. And now they sat in silence in Britain. No one beat them. No one interrogated them. But Farm Hall had ears. Every word they spoke, every memory shared, was recorded. And between tea and leather chairs, the truth slipped out. The Leipzig incident wasn't in classified files. It came up during casual dinners. They laughed about the experiment like it was a technical hiccup. But it wasn't an experiment. It was humanity's first nuclear nightmare lit by their own hand. The race for fission and Germany's blind ambition. In 1938, when Otto Hahn and Strassmann accidentally split the uranium nucleus, they cracked open the moral fault line between intellect and ethics. This news reached Germany not as a discovery, but as a military order. For Hitler, fission wasn't innovation. It was annihilation. As war broke out, Germany's uranium project fell under military command. Science had officially been drafted into war. When these brilliant German minds stepped into their labs, they didn't bring samples. They carried orders. Materials weren't just uranium or heavy water, but loyalty to Nazism. Those who once taught freedom-based theories now researched in secrecy, unchecked by ethics. Every number, every neutron reaction was recalculated as killing potential. The price of ambition wasn't just resources, it was the soul of science. Worse than failure is following the right process toward the wrong goal. The Nazi nuclear program ran on the delusion of weaponization, divided into 3 disjointed parts: reactor development materials, production, and isotope separation. Each worked in isolation. While America gathered brilliance under the Manhattan Project, Germany tried to build the atomic bomb amid bureaucratic chaos. It was intelligence lost in translation. The deadly machines named L1, L2, L3. Leipzig, tranquil in the morning fog, was transformed into a sanctuary for humanity's most dangerous artificial creations. These first reactors, L1, L2, L3, weren't industrial marvels, but semi-public experiments at university campuses. Yet they weren't innocent. They were early prototypes of nuclear reactors. And those building them didn't realize they were engineering humanity's first ticking time bombs. L1 failed. L2 consumed 164 kg of heavy water and still didn't spark a chain reaction. L3, using 160 kg heavy water and 140 kg uranium, didn't emit extra neutrons either. But failure didn't stop them. They believed it meant they were almost there. They never asked whether the destination was worth reaching. Science unmoored from ethics has no limits. Leipzig was proof of ignorance weaponized by physics. Why continue investing in something inert? Why assume what doesn't react today will explode tomorrow? Because their goal wasn't light, it was death. Every failed device didn't discourage them. It encouraged larger uranium loads. As if somehow, if they threw enough mass into a sphere, the universe would gift them an explosion. But not all physical reactions lead to weapons. L4. A monster born without a kill switch. The L4 reactor was built on recklessness, arrogance, and ignorance of consequence. It wasn't created by a cohesive institution, but by a team of overconfident, disorganized visionaries. 2 aluminum hemispheres containing 7.25 kilologs of uranium powder and 1.4 kiloliters of heavy water, an explosive cocktail, were assembled without any mechanism to stop a chain reaction. No brakes on this speeding train. L4's radical design included a light water layer for neutron reflection and biological shielding. It had a vacuum chamber to accommodate expansion. But the fatal flaw remained. If the reactor started, there was no way to stop it. In the history of nuclear energy, few things are more dangerous than a chain reaction device with no off switch. L4 embodied the phrase, "I know what I'm doing," right before it all blew up. They continued anyway. Neutron output was rising. They were excited. Safety didn't matter. They were sitting on a powder keg and lighting matches. The absurdity. No one asked, what if it actually works? Science without challenge becomes religion. In that room, they weren't scientists. They were zealots praising a nuclear demon they could no longer control. June 23rd, hell erupts in Leipzig. That day, bubbling water appeared at the reactor's top. A clear warning something was wrong. But instead of stepping back, they opened the lid on a system with 0 control measures. As air rushed into the vacuum chamber, oxygen reacted instantly with hydrated uranium. A ferocious ignition followed. It was no longer an experiment. It was an explosion. A simple mistake opening a system without first ensuring safety. And so the nuclear firestorm ignited. Temperatures soared to 1,000 degrees Celsius. The water boiled away. Pressure blew apart the aluminum sphere, launching flaming uranium into the air. Steam and radioactive powder blasted several meters upward. This wasn't a lab mishap. It was a catastrophic event. The inferno raged for 2 days, with secondary fires erupting continuously, tearing down the facility. Leipzig had now become the birthplace of the world's first nuclear reactor disaster. No alarms, no evacuation plan, no emergency team, because they never considered consequences. L4's failure wasn't caused by faulty tools. It was caused by a fatal mix of arrogance and scientific negligence. Some reports claimed 0 casualties. Others said 4 dead. But what's certain, survivors were never the same. Radiation guilt and shame etched into their psyche. The fire didn't just burn uranium, it scorched their legacy, a disaster no one wanted to claim. No formal report was released, no scientific tribunal convened. Because this disaster was buried under its own rubble. The world didn't learn about Leipzig through press or leaks. It stayed hidden until microphones at Farm Hall changed everything. A few careless words over dinner exposed a deadly secret. The L4 explosion wasn't acknowledged in reports. It was confessed unknowingly in conversation. At Farm Hall, where German scientists lived comfortably, they had no idea their laughter and war stories were recorded. And during casual chats, they admitted the full scope of the LV4 accident. Not in lab logs, not in academic journals, but in informal retellings between clinking teacups. What they saw as a curious failure was in fact humanity's first uncontrolled nuclear incident. They showed no remorse. They didn't see it as fault, just a lost learning opportunity. That was the horror. An explosion can destroy a building, but a cold, indifferent mindset can destroy civilization. When scientists no longer fear mistakes, when harm elicits no regret, science ceases to be science. It becomes ideological extremism with a PhD. Leipzig stands as a monument to that warning. L4 failed, but created the first dark achievement Sounds absurd. But yes, L4 became the first documented case of neutron multiplication beyond its source in Nazi Germany's nuclear effort. It didn't sustain a chain reaction, but it showed they were close. And the cost immense. Uranium lost, heavy water destroyed, building collapsed. Leipzig removed from the program. L4 became the final and most bitter lesson. The German state didn't investigate further. No rebuilding orders followed. Future tests were moved to Berlin, a way to push disaster out of sight rather than confront it. L4 should have triggered full program review. Instead, it was boxed up as a technical glitch. That carelessness didn't just kill potential, it killed faith in wartime German science. Worse yet, it was too late. As American troops arrived, they quickly dismantled remaining reactors and shipped them to the US for analysis. Heisenberg's dream died in silence. The entire project was judged chaotic, fragmented, and far behind the Manhattan Project. But what America didn't realize, they had just prevented another L4 possibly worse. Leipzig's failure was a tragic gift to the future. Farm Hall, where truth was stolen through radio waves. Farm Hall had no torture rooms, but it was the most effective interrogation tool of the war. No whips, just hidden microphones. Every laugh, every curse, every war memory became intelligence. And during casual stories at mealtime, the German nuclear program unraveled itself. Leipzig, unknown to the British, emerged through vivid, guiltless recollections, told with pride, not regret. When Allied forces announced Japan's atomic bombing, the Farm Hall group didn't gasp. They denied it. They couldn't believe any other country had overtaken them. Their logic: if they hadn't built a bomb, then no one could have. That arrogance doomed their efforts. While they were trapped in theory, others moved into action. Their failure wasn't lack of intelligence, it was ideological blindness. Farm Hall didn't just record technical failures. It captured moral collapse, fractured vision, and anti-collaborative ego. German scientists, instead of working together, competed internally. Instead of caution, they gambled. Instead of creation, they destroyed. And Leipzig, through their unfiltered words, stands as proof that science aligned with wrong history will ignite itself with its own fire. No court needed. They self-incriminated in their own voices, a stain on German physics that won't wash away. No textbooks mention L4. No memorials honor it. No international forums host the Leipzig lesson. Because it wasn't just scientific failure, it was an ethical disgrace. A research program driven not by curiosity, but by conquest. And when science serves war, every formula, no matter how elegant, becomes a weapon. German physics was once the world's pride. Einstein, Planck, Heisenberg. But in mere years, it became a symbol of science, lost unaccountable and dehumanized. Those who once pioneered our understanding of reality were now behind an unprecedented reactor explosion. Leipzig could have been the birthplace of civilian chain reaction. Instead, it became the symbol of uncontrolled ignition, destruction, and collapse. L4 shouldn't be buried. It should be taught, not as a faulty equation, but as a warning cry for modern scientists. No experiment is harmless when performed by the unaccountable. Leipzig is proof. When science is led by politics, arrogance, and lack of peer review, then what we call technological progress is just a glossy coating over a ticking disaster. History doesn't repeat, but it always rhymes. Leipzig in 1945, Chernobyl 1986, Fukushima 2011. Different nations, different generations. Same core lesson, a minor technical error. Uncontrolled system. catastrophe. History may not repeat its details, but its core themes echo. L4 wasn't random. It was the result of belief that intelligence can't be wrong. And because no one learned from L4, humanity kept stepping into disasters Leipzig had already foreshadowed. The irony, had Germany succeeded at L4, the world might have seen Hiroshima at the hands of fascists before the US intervened. But their failure, accidental as it was, became a historical speed bump. It bought the world time. But it also served as a warning: no technology is safe without control, no discovery is worthwhile without responsibility, and no progress is real unless it serves humanity. That's why Leipzig must not be forgotten. It must be recalled, not to condemn, but to warn. As we enter the age of AI, nuclear fusion, synthetic biology, if we carry the same build first, think later mindset as L4, the disasters will return in new forms. Let us learn from Leipzig, not in fear, but in resolve. The resolve that science must serve life, not experiment with death. Leipzig didn't die from radiation, it died from complacency. L4 didn't explode from physics, it exploded from blind faith that science could exist without ethics. This was not an accident, it was the curse of directionless intellect. And if we, in the age of AI, synthetic biology, and fusion energy, continue down that same path, then Leipzig won't be the past, it will be prophecy. Don't fear technology, fear ourselves when we wield it without restraint. Because no invention is ever great if it leads to the erasure of humanity itself.